right, guys, what is up? Welcome to Breakfast with the Brand. That's right, the number one podcast in the world for entrepreneurs and leaders who want to go from bland to industry leading brand. Now, guys, I know you're accustomed to us being on Saturdays, but we're about to do something a little bit different. I have with me Mr. Sean Raiz, and I want you to help me welcome him on. So, what's up, Sean?
Hey, doing something a little bit different. Very phenomenal, no complaints whatsoever. It's early, right? It's early on a weekday. So we helping you right now go from where you are to where you want to be because right now, early in the morning, a lot of people are going from where they are to where they don't want to be, right? A lot of people are on their way to work. Hopefully it's a job that you love. If not, we're going to help you. Even if it is, we're going to help you, right? Branding is it, guys. I promise you. So through this branding exploration and journey that we go on, we want to help you to move up in or out of, right? Move up in or out of brand you, not what you do. I want to give you some inspiration, some motivation as you are on your way to work. Hopefully you're not demotivated while you're going, right? So I wanted to shift and bring a little bit of levity, business, progress, and process to what you're doing in the morning. Definitely. Every
Yes,
morning. We've been asked, right, Junior? We've been asked. They said, listen, you got to do this every day. Breakfast with the Brand. What happens during the week? How do we get the same kind of energy? If you guys see me looking down, it's because I'm on IG as well, right? But it's very, very important, very, very serious that you take your brand seriously. We want to help you, whether you're an entrepreneur, an executive, an employee, frontline, whatever the case may be. Branding will be the key to adding a zero to your income, your impact, and your independence.
yes, sir. And yeah, let me just say that phenomenal morning, right, to everybody that's viewing. Of course, I am coming in from the lovely island of St. Lucia. So if some of my people just happen to be listening, then I want to say phenomenal morning to you as well. All right. So I see Portia. So Portia, shout out to you. I think the people that are commuting, particularly, they're really gonna enjoy this, right? So,
Yeah,
guys, what we want to do here is we want to have a very stimulating discussion with regards to business and with regards to your life, right? Your brand, your future, right? So that's what it's about.
that's right.
Before we even get into the meat of it, I want to take it all the way back to the basics. And I mean the very, very, very basic, which is what really and truly is a brand. I mean, people might associate a brand with a logo. They might say, well, a brand is this, a brand is that. But let's take it all the way back, brother. So what is a brand? For the people who are viewing.
All right. So a brand is an experience, an energy. It is a feeling, right? It's a feeling. It's also a representation and a reflection of who you are and what you stand for. So when people ask me, how do I brand? What is branding? What do I do first? I tell them to look in the mirror first. Look in the mirror because that is the brand. You are the brand. The brand is you. So, how do you feel when you look in the mirror? How do you feel? What are your first thoughts? Because no, lo and behold, right, you have been branding all of your life. The reputation that you have is your brand. The way people think about you before you enter the room, when your name is mentioned, that's a brand. The way people feel when you get there, when they see your presence, your visage, when they think about you in their mind, that's the brand. And when you leave the room, the way that they speak about you is the brand. And that's why I always say that branding is not just for entrepreneurs, it's also for executives and employees, right? Wherever you are holding a brand up. So you have to be very careful about how you represent yourself, how you treat people, and how you interact with people, because whether you know it or not, your brand will be based on the experience that people have with you. So professionally, personally, influencer. There's a lot of different stages that a brand goes through in the state, brand development. However, it's still you. It's still you. And that's why we always say it doesn't make a difference where you go. You take you with you. And people wonder, why do I get into a different relationship and still have the same outcome? Why do I job hop? Why do I go from job to job to job and not get the kind of promotions or the kind of notoriety or the kind of recognition and respect that I should get? And it's because it doesn't make a difference where you go. You take you with you. So if you're not in your best self, if you're not being the best version of you, then your branding is going to suffer, whether it's inside or outside of any organization. So that's the brand. The brand is an experience. The brand is a feeling. The brand is an energy.
I wrote down this word, right? And guys, I want to say phenomenal day again. If you are looking, go ahead, put it in the chat. Where are you listening in from? I wrote down this word, right? I wrote down the word experience.
Yes.
I wrote down experience. And I think, it's worth it to break down what really and truly is an experience. How does one go about creating an experience? In fact, let me not even say, let's go back a little bit further, right? So how does one consciously create an experience? Because I mean, if you're alive, if you're interacting with people, then you're already creating an experience. I tell people all the time, it's like people ask me, hey, do I have a brand? Of course you have a brand. The question is, are you going to consciously, take part in the creation of your brand? So let's talk about experience. I don't want to just brush that over. Let's talk about what goes into a phenomenal brand experience. Now, we could look at this without the business aspect and also with the business aspect, but just for the people that are viewing, that are listening, people on their way to work right now, like guys, think about the experience that you're creating. So
I
Sean, what
want
creates an experience?
to honor a break, right? I want to take a break first. So I want to go to a break real quick. But before we do, I want to say this. Without being religious, it was asked once, what is the best religion? And the best religion is to do unto others as you would have done unto you. And that's the definition, clear-cut definition of what is the best experience at the same time. Because you want to provide people with the kind of experience that you would like to have. That's the best possible experience. Think about your best experience getting on a plane. What would that look like? Think about your best experience going to a location you've never been before and entering a Four Seasons or a Hyatt or a Regency. What is the best experience possible, right? So think about that. Do unto others as you would have done unto you, and create the best experience possible. We'll get back with that experience piece in 1 second. Go ahead, Mr. B. Take us to the first break. Thank you, sir. I don't talk theory. I don't talk theory.
All right, guys. So we're back. We're back. Okay. So we were gonna go to a break, but things happen for a reason. So we might skip this break. Sean, I think that question I asked you was super important.
It was, but just give me 1 second. Let me make sure that's. It's very important that you know yourself to the highest degree possible, because it's through knowing ourselves that we're able to know other people. You are the most important person in the room, and the better that you know yourself, the better that you're able to communicate to others. So you're not only playing the game knowing who you are, but you're also playing the game knowing who everyone else is, so that you're not playing blind.
He's extremely engaging with people. He has a fantastic smile, and he's just very high energy person.
This is called leadership development. So we have to be independently knowledgeable and considerate to know who we are so we can more effectively know who other people are. As the leader, it's your responsibility to allocate resources in the right places. If you don't know how to communicate effectively, you're losing the battle. I don't talk theory, I don't talk hyperbole, I don't talk opinion. Nothing I talk is anything but evidence-based.
During the G Circle retreat in Atlanta, I had the pleasure and the honor of listening to Mr. Sean Rais. He will not only impact your organization, but he will elevate your team to another level.
When you change you, when you put you into the equation, the whole system is different. I guarantee you, you got the right thing. You are the right person. If you can present yourself in the best way possible, there's no negotiation.
His energy is infectious, and I have so many takeaways from the presentation that I can't wait to get started and implement them today to see the result.
All right, so we are back. Let's get into it. What was the question again, sir? The experience, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so the experience again, guys, you want to reverse engineer the best case scenario. When you're building your brand, when you're building your business, when you're onboarding, when you're thinking about the cloud nine, what is the cloud nine experience? What is the 5-star experience? How would you feel if everything went phenomenally for you in a flight, in a hotel reservation, in a relationship, and then reverse engineer that process? So think about yourself now. You're on your way to a job. I know somebody said they're on their way to a job that they're not so happy about, right? A job I don't like. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Think about yourself loving that job, being in love with that situation, and getting the promotion that you desire out of it. Think about that. And then who would you have to be? Who would you have to become? What experience would the people have to have in order for you to get that promotion? Who would you have to be? How would you have to assist? How would you have to show up? How would you have to walk, talk, and speak? I can remember, guys, getting the wrong experiences out of life, the wrong feedback. So let me say this. Your experience in your business, your experience in your life, your experience professionally, it's all feedback. It's all feedback. So if you're in a job that you don't like, it's simply feedback. That's it. It's not saying that you're a bad person. It's not saying that your life is doomed. It's not saying that things aren't going to get better. It's just feedback for where you are right now. The person that you're showing up as is receiving feedback to that degree. So how do you change the feedback? You change the feedback by changing the reality. You handle yourself differently, or you brand yourself differently. You give people a different experience. And from that different experience, people gauge you differently. They gauge you differently. They experience you differently. They see you differently. Their perception changes, and then your compensation changes. So then first they gauge you, and then they wage you. That's what your pay is based on. Not so much the education. The education gets you the job. The qualification gets you in the door. It's the experience that you provide that keeps you there and moves you up. It's the brand that you bring to the interview, to the job. And this is the problem. Most people are phenomenal on their first 90 days. And then around that 120-day mark, their performance dips. Their old habits resurface, and their brand deteriorates. They start to show up a little bit late. They start to leave a little bit early. They start to move a little bit hastily. And then they wonder why people are passing them by on promotions. And maybe people that even came into the organization after them get promoted before them.
So, Sean, I wrote down something while you were speaking. I wrote down two words actually. I wrote down perception.
Very good.
I also wrote down consistency.
Very
So
good.
when we talk about perception, when we talk about branding, right? How much of branding is a perception? How
How
much
much?
of branding is a perception?
I would say it's the 80-20. I would go back to Pareto. I would go back to the 80-20 rule. Your results are the 80. The results based on people's perception of you, that's the results that you get. So as an individual, we're all about the results, right? We want the 80%. We want the results. We want the car, we want the house, we want the promotion, we want the wage. But we don't pay attention to the details. I always say that God is in the details, but the devil is too. So what is your brand? What is your input? What is the part that you put into it? Some people say, well, I'm just going to go to school and get the degree. And now that I got the degree, I'm going to get the pay. That's not the case. That's just like somebody knowing how to coach and being able to coach someone and help someone, but their marketing is off. Their marketing is off, and the experience that they provide is off. They
Yes.
want the 80, but they don't take care of the 20. So if you take care of the 20, the 80 will take care of itself.
Nice. When I think about the 20, I think about the word integrity because perception is one thing, integrity is another.
It is.
Perception is, somebody could perceive something that's not necessarily true, right?
Definitely.
So you can perceive something that's not necessarily true, and then the integrity is it actually being true and actually being who you say you are. So what I'm hearing is, in the sense of what we're talking about, building a brand is not only about building the perception, it's about building yourself, building your skills, building
All day.
your building your abilities so you have the right integrity to match the perception. Now if we go back to people that are commuting to work right now, people at the workplace, the professionals, they're looking to develop businesses, right? And put it in the chat, how many of you are looking to develop businesses as professionals? Just go ahead, put it in the chat, in the comments, wherever you are, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn.
Kimberly,
So,
welcome.
so how many of these people, these professionals, need to take into consideration their perception at the workplace, and how does that tie into their business?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm so glad you asked. So my nickname on the in the organizational space was church. That was my nickname in the organization, church, right? It would say, here comes church, here comes church. And that was because even on a Sunday, Saturday, dress down Friday, casual Friday, or whatever the case may be, holidays, I came to work with a white shirt, primarily a red tie. Sometimes I would have a blue tie on, but primarily a red tie, white shirt at all times. And people would say, it's Friday, Sean. Why are you dressed that way? And I would say, because I'm not dressing for this job. I'm dressing for my station in life. I'm not dressing for the present. I'm dressing for the future. I'm not dressing for my current situation. I'm dressing for the next situation. I'm not dressing for my pay range. I'm dressing for my leadership. It has nothing to do with where I'm at. It has nothing to do with you or the organization, nothing at all. It's the respect and the standards that I hold myself to. It's the respect and the standards that I hold myself to as an officer and a gentleman, as an executive, as a leader. Has nothing to do with the wage, has nothing to do with the pay grade. Some people say, well, I'm only getting paid this, so I'm only going to give them that. Listen, that's the wrong mentality, because it's the same thing in your organization. When you build your business, you're not going to succeed past the success that you are. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You are going to rise or fall to the level of your leadership. And a big part of it is perception. There's how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us. And I taught this in Branded Like a Leader. I said that you have to change your attire to match your desire. So if you desire to move up in the organization, you have to dress like the next level so people can see you in the next seat. You're not dressing for the chair that you have. You're not dressing for the pay range that you have. If you get $27 an hour, don't dress for $27 an hour. Dress for $150 an hour, $250 an hour. Dress as an executive. I remember when I first began in the workforce, I was an intern. I began as an intern in the workforce. I'm doing industrial and organizational psychology, and I'm shadowing and organizational development and change, and I have to do interns and on-site specs to get acclimated to the real situation. I can remember walking around not getting a paycheck at all, and people asking me where was the head office, stopping me and talking about their benefits as if I was the CEO. And then later I became a CEO. But you see, it's the same thing with the millionaire status. You become a millionaire long before the money catches up. So you have to carry yourself as a CEO long before the rank and file or the rank and title shows up and catches up. It's all about you and how you show up. If you want to move up in your organization, then act like you're up in your organization, dress like you're up in your organization, and show up like you're up in your organization. One example is that I always used to show up to the organization an hour early. And people would say, why are you leaving so early? Why are you getting here so early? The place hasn't even opened up yet. And I would travel to work and I would say, well, you don't know how long you're going to be stuck in traffic. You don't know what's going to happen on the trains in the city of New York. Traffic is interesting. And they always leave like a 15-minute gap for the late people. They give a 15-minute gap, Junior, in America. They give a 15-minute gap for people to show up to work, just knowing that average performers are going to try to get there at 8:59 if they have to clock in at 9 o'clock. So when something happens, when a hiccup takes place on the bus or on the train, they show up late. Listen, if you're consistently showing up late, that's your brand. And if your paycheck matches your brand, don't be mad. If your paycheck is late, if your performance is low and your paycheck is low, don't be mad. Because I believe strongly in a pay per performance organization and setting. I believe that you eat what you kill. I believe in the entrepreneurial mindset, even within an organization. So entrepreneurial to entrepreneurial. You have to be an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, even in the organization, if you want to move up. You want to add a zero to your income, add a zero to yourself, add a zero to your performance. Add a zero to your skills, add a zero to your education, add a zero to your communication level.
Nice. So for the people who want to go from organizational to entrepreneurial, what advice would you have? Because, like you said a while ago, you take you with you everywhere you go.
That's right.
So the people, like, we know there are people who go to work and they don't necessarily perform the way that they can or the way that they should. But then when they get into their business, they may be expecting it to be different. So what advice would you have, being somebody who has successfully transitioned themselves from the organizational space into the entrepreneurial space? What advice would you give to people
I
who
love it.
don't necessarily like that? So right now they go into a job they don't like, okay, but they have visions, they have goals, they have ambitions of now getting into business. So what would you say to those people?
I love the question. Be the best version that you know you can be, and do it now. So, Junior, you were accurate, but there was a way that you framed it that was inaccurate. So you said I transitioned myself out, but that's not the case. I was transitioned out. I was hired out. I was recruited out. I was waged out. I was invested in out of the organization. I had the consultancy role within an organization, and I was working with my clients on my own. And what happened was my clients invested 3 to 5 times more in me than the organization could keep up with. So they bought my stock. They bought me out of the organization. I didn't just transition out. My goal was not really to leave the organization, guys, and pay attention to this. My goal was to serve. My objective was to serve. My mantra was to serve. My goal and objective in business and as a consultant was to serve. So I served in the organizational status, and then I began to serve in the private sector. And what happened was the private sector became so large and the clients became so numerous, and they began to invest so much in me that I could no longer justify going to a brick and mortar. They transitioned me out into a click and order. They transitioned me out from a rote and stationary organizational setting. They paid my contract. Basically, they invested in me. They purchased my services to a much higher degree. So I had no choice but to leave. It was an ethical conundrum that I was in. Do I continue to give attention to the organization that's paying me maybe 80, 90, 120? Or do I pay attention and focus on the entrepreneurial sector that's paying me 360, 500, half a million? You understand? So there was inequality there, and it was only the right thing for me to transition. And the reason why it happened was because I carried myself as a professional a long time ago. A long time ago. So when I was in college, I conducted myself as a CEO, as an entrepreneur. I didn't just start waking up early. We did the alien call at 4 o'clock in the morning, but I've been waking up at 3 o'clock so long that I set my alarm, and it doesn't make a difference what time the alarm goes off. I wake up an hour before it. I haven't heard my alarm in a long time, and that's because of my performance level. So guys, if you want to get a zero behind your number, if you want to grow your brand inside the organization. So let me give you an example. Jalita Robinson. Jalita Robinson is a client who was able to take Branded Like a Leader and add a zero, or add, like, she completely transformed her organizational setting and her contract. Within less than 45 days, she renegotiated her salary to the tune of almost $250,000 because of the way she carried herself, because of the way she branded herself, and because of the way she asserted herself and communicated within the organization. They knew something changed. And I always say, guys, if you want something to change, look no further than you. If you want something to change, look no further than you. Money follows movement. You got to move. You want something to change? Change you. The boss isn't going to change. The economy isn't going to change. The situation isn't going to change. The client population isn't going to change. So if you want some changes to take place, you need to start with you. As Michael Jackson said, the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror.
Yes, sir. So, Sean, I think are actually due for a short break. So let's go to that break, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk about how professionals can transition if they want to, right, from that job into the entrepreneurial
Very
space.
good. Very good. I'm going to say this. You want to be able to transition within or outside of the organization. Absolutely mandatory, because, as always, winter is coming.
I'm Jackie Miller, and I was really drawn to Sean's personality from the moment that I did the Branding Like a Leader challenge. This was the free challenge that he offered. And I'm so glad that he offered it, because I joined the class and I was blown away. First of all, by his giving personality. For me, it was the personality that really drew me in. But then as he was sharing his wealth of knowledge, I realized that there was so much that I didn't know. I already knew there was a lot I didn't know, but there was so much that I didn't know. And he was just freely giving this information. It was evident that he really wanted to help people. And as somebody who likes to help people, that I connected with that. And then I was able to connect not only with Sean, but then with his team, with Junior and with Jason, Mr. B, and just the entire team has just been absolutely incredible. They are a joy to work with. They go above and beyond. One day, something had come up, and Junior he texted me just to see how I was doing. And that really touched my heart. So that relational piece is there. So if you were having any doubts about what Mr. Sean Rais and his team with the brand can offer you, let me let you know. It is a treat and it is a joy, and you will not be disappointed.
So for me, it was pretty much learning a little bit more about how to communicate, how I can build my personal branding and my personal development. With me, I do a lot of nonprofit work. I also work at Salesforce. So just trying to find better ways that I can network, that I can make sure when I walk into a room that my presence is felt. I felt as if he had a lot of takeaways, especially how he dissected the chessboard and like the king, the queen, the rook, the knight. So I really quite like that personally, and I love chess too. Life is chess, the world is chess, it's not checkers. So that's what I really like about that.
Right, guys, welcome back. This is Breakfast with the Brand. I have with me Mr. Sean Rais, and we're talking about transitioning, right? We're talking about branding and the transition from the employee mindset and state to the state of becoming an entrepreneur. So, Sean, before we went to the break, I was asking about, basically tips that you would have for people. They may be driving to the workplace right now, and let's talk about how does one cope. I can imagine that it may not be easy, right, to have the mindset and the drive and the desire of an entrepreneur, but to feel stuck.
Okay.
Imagine the friction and the frustration there.
I got it. I got it. Right. So I'm on IG as well, guys. If you watch me look down or something, my phone is right here and I'm on Instagram as well. So Kimberly says that this is exactly what I did to become a self-leader and leave a dead-end job. Right. So I don't know if your job is a dead end. I would actually say that no job is a dead end job. I hate that term. I understand what it can be inferred from it. There are some places where there's some stifling, but this is my thing, right? If you are a revolutionary individual, then you can revolutionize any industry, any organization, right? Very important, very, very important that you always see promise and potential in any situation that you're in, because the right person will resurrect the dead situation. You might want to write that down. It's a mindset of mine. The right person can resurrect the dead situation in your organization, outside of your organization. It's you. It's you. You can bring light to the dark and change the situation. So before you become an entrepreneur, you're going to have to become an entrepreneur. Before you become an entrepreneur, you're going to have to become an entrepreneur. And in order for you to become successful, it's not about the promotion that's going to make you successful. It's not about the next client that's going to make you successful. It's about you becoming successful and getting the promotion, right? It's about you becoming successful and getting the next client. It's not being dependent upon the next situation. It's being independent and creating the next situation. That's how it works. And it doesn't work in reverse. It never has, and it never will. If you look upon your situation as a dead-end situation, then the dead-end situation you will into existence. So you asked me a question specifically, how do you cope? Me personally, I never looked at my situation as my situation. I always looked at my situation as the next step to get where I was trying to go. So you've heard the story before, the true story before. I used to go to a job my travel time used to be 4 hours to and from. So I lived in Long Island and I worked in the Bronx, New York, Bronx, New York. So I lived in Long Island, and so I took the Long Island Railroad, right? Some of you might be on the Long Island Railroad or know what I'm talking about. I took the Long Island Railroad to 34th Street, and then from 34th Street, I went to the Bronx, 149th Street Concourse, right? So 1 hour each, about an hour each. On those train cars, though, I never sat there and ruminated on where I was going or what my situation was. I had my laptop, I had my computer, and when I didn't get Wi Fi, I had books. And when I was walking and couldn't be reading or clicking, working on my master's degree, I would have headphones in my ears and I would be programming my psychology, which changed my physiology so I could have the energy to face whatever came that day in the next situation. I never saw myself as in the current situation. I always saw myself in the next situation. So it's the same thing as my tax bracket. I never saw myself as being a part or tied to the tax bracket that I was currently in. I'm always in a home thinking about the next home, Junior. I'm always in a car thinking about the next car. I'm always in a suit of clothes thinking about the next situation. Now, one thing that I'm not doing is in a relationship thinking about the next relationship. I'm happily married. I don't think about the next marriage or the next relationship. However, within an organization, I'm always thinking about the next position, whether that's up or out into the next better situation where I'm adding more value. This is the thing. Honestly, I could have been retained in any organization that I've ever been in. I could have been retained. So I want you to think about how you can become retained and maintained when you obtain the right mentality. When you obtain the right mentality, I'm so glad that you're enjoying this. Kimberly's enjoying this on Instagram, y'all. Guys, we're everywhere right now. Let me just say that, right? We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Facebook, on multiple different pages, guys. I want to help you get the right mindset about branding and what it really means, because you can't brand yourself from the back. So you got to be a leader to have the right branding. You got to brand. This is why we did the course Branded Like a Leader. Branded Like a Leader, and this is absolutely free, no risk involved. This is what we do. I want to earn your trust before we earn your money and you come into a program with us. I want you to program yourself for success first. Whether you work with us or not, no matter who you work with at all, whether you're an entrepreneur, I want you to get the tools for success that you need, because that's what it's about. It's about branding you and becoming the leader that you need to be inside of the organization or outside of the organization. So again, Junior, to your point, coping, it wasn't hard for me to cope because I never accepted my current situation as permanent. It was always temporary, stationary, and a stepping stool or a step ladder to the next situation. Your current situation is not permanent unless you make it so. If you're going to a job that you don't like, change you. Change you. Because no matter what you do in business, in life, in relationships, in parenting, you're going to have situations that come up that you're not going to like. But the way that you handle it will be based on a word that Junior used before, which is your perception of it. And that's your brand. That's your brand. Do you have an optimistic brand or do you have a pessimistic brand? Do you have an aspirational brand or do you have a depression brand? Is your depression deteriorating? Is your brand sucking air out of the room or giving life to it? In the organization or outside of the organization, it will have the same effect. Don't think you're going to be a failure in the public sector and then be a success in the private sector. It will never happen.
Sean, let's talk about growth.
Yes.
Right? So you said a lot there, and you said a couple things that I happen to I really believe. And let's talk about growth, and growth in the sense of, people outgrowing their position, people outgrowing their state, them outgrowing their position, not only in the workplace but also in life.
Yes, sir.
There are two ways you can look at it, right? When I think about working in an organization, you could be in the organization right now, you could just jump out. You could just jump out. You could say, you know what, I think I want to get into business. I want to be an entrepreneur, and you could just jump out. Or you could grow out of the position and make it to a point, which much like you, I would say, me knowing your story and everything, you grow yourself so much that it doesn't even make sense for you. You've outgrown the organization basically. So you've grown so much where you've actually outgrown the organization.
Yes, sir.
And there's a saying that knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave.
Whew, whew. That's powerful. Yes, I agree. Knowledge does make a person unfit to be a slave. Now, I want to critically examine the terminology. I really want to critically examine the terminology because I don't want there to be a misappropriation or a misunderstanding of what we're saying. So let me give you the feedback that we're getting from Instagram. So Kimberly says that I was working for the state government and there was no promotion potential. So I had to leave the organization. And that is why she used the term dead end. But that position was a springboard to her next. Right. So in that position, could she be termed or looked at as a slave? Not really, because that's over, right? Slavery is over. When you're going to work, this is what I want you to understand. When you're going to work, you're still an entrepreneur. You're still an entrepreneur. Your resume is your website. It's telling people, your hiring organization, who you are, what you do, why they should work with you, why they should hire you. That's your resume is your website. Your website just becomes a huger, bigger, more grandiose, and more phenomenal branded resume. And people individually get to choose whether they want to work with you or not. Now, what happens within the organization is we do have a middleman. So the organization becomes a middleman. And you contract your labor to the organization for your salary. And the organization negotiates the paying price of the customer. So they become your middleman. If you do customer service and a person comes into the organization, as soon as they walk in the organization, the dynamic shifts. And you provide services on behalf of the organization. However, if you remove the organization and you provide services to the customer directly without the organizational construct, you usually get about 10 times the number. About 10 times the number. So let me break that down and explain what that looks like in financial terms. In financial terms, if you get paid $65,000 a year to justify your seat in the organization, to justify hiring, to justify wages, to justify benefits, to justify your vacation, to justify all of those things, you're bringing the organization $650,000. You're bringing the organization $650,000. So are you a slave? No, you're more like contracted labor. You're doing services or providing services on behalf of the organization, and the organization is paying you by which term. Like in slavery, you didn't get paid, right? So with the wages that you get as an individual contractor, whether it's a formal job or not, whether it's contracted or not, you're still an employee, but you're under a form of contracted labor, and you take your wage, and that becomes your living expense. That takes care of your food, clothing, and shelter, and hopefully a vacation or some kind of quality of life. And if not, you need to renegotiate your staying power. But in order for you to renegotiate your staying power, you have to change your positioning. You have to change your positioning, which means you have to change the value that you bring to the organization. And how do you do that? You do that by upgrading yourself. You do that by upgrading your attitude. You do that by upgrading your acumen, your skill set, your natural given abilities. That's how it happens. That's how you bring more value to an organization, by bringing more value into you. Right? So I don't want anyone to feel like they're a slave going to a job, because I've been there, done that, and it wasn't a slave situation. What it was a phenomenal opportunity to interact with other people and learn about life and learn about what I needed to do and who I needed to become in order to go to the next level. So life is phenomenal for personal development and professional development based on the perception that you have of it and whether you use it or allow it to use you. Now, If you're looking at it from a deficits perspective, then you see yourself that way. And it's a detrimental perspective to have because it's hard to be inspired. It's hard to look at it optimistically from that position. However, if you look at it from an appreciative inquiry and a beneficial statement, and as well as an appreciative inquiry, and you can be proud of where you're at and see it for what it really is and be appreciative and grateful for the opportunity, appreciative and grateful, no matter how unappreciative the situation may be, you make yourself a better person and you qualify yourself for a better situation. That's an entrepreneur. The old definition, one of the core definitions for an entrepreneur is taking the lowest, something of the low value and making it high value. Raising the value of the situation is an entrepreneur. That's what we do. We take things that might be a commodity and make it a novelty. We take things that are low value or things that people take for granted and help them to appreciate and have gratitude for it. So we take things from the lowest resource and make it a high value resource. And if you can't do that in your own mind or in your own situation, then your life is not going to be what you'd like it to be. You're probably in a perfect relationship, phenomenal relationship, a relationship that could be phenomenal, but you don't look at it that way. You're probably in a situation where you can do anything that you want to with all of the resources that you have, but you don't look at it that way, right? There's a lot of opportunity. So that's why when people when they sit, and that's what I was saying on this speech, I'm going to play the speech before we leave. I'm going to play the small segment of talk before we leave. And I said something there about people who have been in an organization in the same seat at the same salary for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and just watch people pass them. I used to do that. I'd come into an organization at an entry fee, and I would move up maybe 3 or 4 pay brackets within 2 years. Within 2 years, I would double my salary and pass people who were still sitting still. The reason why I passed them is because they were sitting still. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, aspirationally, economically, mentally, they were not moving. They were sitting still. So the higher ups, the superiors, the people who was watching the floor and watching in the organization to see who was moving, I was the definition of who was moving. My organization is the definition of what is moving. Branding is the definition of what is moving. Leadership is the definition of what is moving. If you're branded the right way and if you're leading the right way, if you're a leader, you will be recognized for who you are, what you bring, the value that you bring to any relationship, any situation, and you will ascend. If not, you will sit still or be demoted. You'll lose what you don't appreciate.
Yes, sir. So let's go to one break, and then when we come back, we're going to wrap up with a few questions.
All right. I don't talk theory. I don't talk hyperbole. I don't talk opinion. Nothing I talk is anything but evidence-based.
During the G Circle retreat in Atlanta, I had the pleasure and the honor of listening to Mr. Sean Rais. He will not only impact your organization, but he will elevate your team to another level.
When you change you, when you put you into the equation, the whole system is different. I guarantee you, you got the right thing. You are the right person. If you can present yourself in the best way possible, there's no negotiation.
His energy is infectious, and I have so many takeaways from the presentation that I can't wait to get started and implement them today to see the result.
All right. All right.
Yes, sir. Welcome back, guys. This is Breakfast with the Brand. I want to send a quick shout out to Queen A. So Queen A says, let's put that up. She said, "That's me. I've always came in and dominated any job that I've had." All right. So shout out to Queen A.
Very good. Very good.
Yes, sir. So Sean, we're actually nearing the end of the show, right? And I want to ask one more question that I
Let me
think
let
is
me let me say something to my people on IG because IG is turned up right now, right? So we on IG as well. Kimberly Fallis is present. Knowles 782. Darren Bedford came in. Let's see who else. Who else? Sebastian Charles official came in. Queen A came in here first. I guess she crossed over there. Listen, guys, we are all over right now. Right? We are all over right now. IG, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and multiple different places. YouTube. Listen, this is your breakfast with the brand. We will be showing up every single day, 5 days a week, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard to get your branding right so you can move up in or out of the organization. It's completely up to you. You do not have to be an entrepreneur to be an entrepreneur and be entrepreneurial inside of the organization and add that zero to your income either way. Independence and impact. Go ahead, sir.
yes, sir. So my last question, right? I want to sort of connect the branding, right, to the entrepreneurial, to the organizational. So for the people who actually do feel like it's time to make that transition, let's talk a little bit about how important is branding. Because you said something here. You said that basically organizations are like middlemen. Okay,
Yeah.
so without the middleman, you're free, right? Everybody wants freedom.
Yes, they do.
You know, freedom's not free.
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
That freedom means that okay, you're free, but now you have what? Responsibility. So that means nobody's gonna look over your shoulder and say, hey, do this and hey, do that. You need to be on time and none of that. So you're free, but you have responsibility, which means that a lot of those characteristics, showing up on time, showing up early, showing up with high energy, these are things that you have to do because guess what? You have to do it so you can survive. So it's not up for the organization now, it's up to
That's
you.
right.
So let's talk a little bit about the skill, because many skills go into actually making business work.
That's
I could
right.
name a few. I could name marketing, I could name sales. So if you cannot sell, guess what? You're not going to be successful in business. If you cannot market, guess what? You're not going to be successful in
Right.
business. But
That's right.
also, if you cannot build a brand, if you cannot package your experience, your unique experience as a person, package your vision into a brand, then guess what? You're not going to be successful in business. So let's talk a little bit about branding and how important is it as one of the skills for professionals who want to make the transition from organizational to entrepreneurial.
It's everything. The brand is what helps you get noticed. So it's interesting because Kimberly actually said something. She responded to what I said about her resume being her website. She said, love that. My resume is my website. It's my brand. That's right. So think about designing your resume. When you design your resume, there's multiple different ways to do it. It's like a business card. There's multiple different ways to do it. But people are always going to notice the executive as opposed to the regular. People are always going to notice the professional as opposed to rote and procedure, regularity. There's always going to be phenomenal. And as my one of my mentors, Eric Thomas, says, he said, be phenomenal or be forgotten. Right? Be phenomenal or be forgotten. So your branding, your positioning, your articulation, your memorability, your ability to be remembered is either going to be phenomenal and you'll be remembered come promotional time, come time to promote, or you'll be forgotten. If people are saying, what's his name or what's her name, the guy who, what's her name, what's his name, then that's a gap. That's a problem. You're not driving your brand home enough. You're not driving it deep enough. People should be having dreams about you because you make such an impression on their mind and on the possible future of their economy, their business, and the potential for growth. Your branding is absolutely everything. If you want to take your education, your experience, and your expertise and turn it into impact, additional income, and independence. And I want to just rewind that real quick and say it again so you can hear it the right way. You want to make sure that you position yourself and accentuate your position, appreciate enough to accentuate, articulate, and stimulate every conversation and every interaction that you have, because that is your brand. The interaction, the being actively creating experience is branding. When you walk into a hotel and people meet you at the door with a cup of coffee or a glass of champagne, that's branding. When you look outside, you see Four Seasons. That's the brand. When they pick you up at the airport in a Subaru, in a Suburban, all black, and they take your bags and they've got your name when you come off the tar pad, they've got your name there. That's branding. How are you doing? Let me take these for you here. Get in the seat. They open the door for you. They have a glass of champagne and strawberries there. And then when you get out, they have another glass of champagne for you when you walk in the door. That's branding. So how are you facilitating that experience for the people who are around you so that they can promote you, push you, and elevate you in your organization or outside of? You'll never succeed outside of if you can't be successful inside of. It's all branding, and it will help you to add a zero to your revenue, add a zero to your impact, your income, and your independence. And this comes from your education, your experience, and your expertise. Most people already have a phenomenal brand or the potential makings of a phenomenal brand. They just don't perceive themselves as such. So tomorrow, we'll be talking about different ways that you can turn your competence into confidence. Most of the people that I work with have a master's degree, have a bachelor's degree, 20 years in the industry, phenomenal people. Even those who don't have the degrees, they have the experience, 20 years, single parent, maybe a successful marriage for 30 years, 20 years. That's huge too, but single parent I've had people come in, I'm a single parent, I raised my child through this, but I don't have any success because I've just stayed at home. And I'm like, no. You have the experience of bringing up a family, of raising a family safely for 20 years. You put kids through college, even though you may not have attended college yourself. You've got experience. That experience is enriching. That experience is worth value. People will pay for that experience to shortcut their learning curve and save themselves time and money and pain. So again, you've got competence, but sometimes, even though we might have a PhD or a master's degree and the competence, we lack the confidence. So that's one thing that we'll be talking about tomorrow, Junior. Confidence, competence, how the two are related, and how you can take your education, your experience, and your expertise and translate it into a phenomenal personal brand that gets you the impact, the independence, and the income that you desire.
Yes, sir, guys. And I just want to say thank you for everybody that have viewed this podcast. If you shared this, thank you very much. Also, if you have any questions, please send them to support@seanrice.com and we will answer them live. Sean, take us home, man. I know
All right,
you're
guys.
show, so go ahead. Let's play that video, guys. Again, thank you so much. We're gonna be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Right, Sean?
7 a.m. Same time, same place, same branded time, same branded place. Let's grow, guys. Thank you very much.
What you're looking at right now is the new face of leadership. I chose to go the route of SOE, standards of excellence. So I help people put zeros behind their numbers. I help people move up in or out of their organization and get paid their annual income monthly, their monthly income weekly, and their weekly income daily. I promise you, if you follow me at all, you're gonna wanna use something to write with. CSA first, CSA. Clarify, simplify, and amplify. Clarify, simplify, and amplify. It starts with a decision. Who do you want to be and what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? You have to define that. If you don't know, then it's vague and it'll never be clear. The problem that we have is clarity. We walk into an organization happy to be there, happy that they accepted us, but we don't have a clear goal. That's why people stay in the same organization year after year after year, go to the same vacation spots with the same people and talk the same amount of nonsense around the same water cooler. So when I go into an organization and someone says they've been here for 20 years and they're still around $60, $70, $80,000, I'm like, whew, it's chilly. It's a little bit cold when I know that all it takes for you to raise your prices, whether it's inside or outside of an organization, is self-belief and dedication. Brand you and not what you do. So when I meet people, I ask people, tell me a little bit about yourself, and they immediately tell me what they do. That's not who you are. Branding is who you are. Marketing is how people find out about you. So when you say, I'm a photographer, you just lumped yourself in with a million other photographers. What's special about you? Why should I work with you? I don't need a hand with a camera. I need a man with a story, a woman with a goal, a vision, someone with an idea of what they want to be and who they want to impact in their lives. That's what moves me. We know where we belong, whether we're in that seat or not. We heard the word legacy and we were pulled to come. I flew in last minute. Let's go. Leadership, legacy, love. Whew, I gotta be there. So what happens in marketing is when you say, I am you put yourself in what we call a red sea. You're now fighting against a million competitors with a million different things. Clarify, who are you? What do you stand for? And then simplify it, don't make it 10 things. Bruce Lee said, I do not fear the man who has thrown 10,000 kicks. He says, I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. You can have the most mouth-watering steak that the world has ever seen, but if you try to position it or place it in a vegan neighborhood, you make no money. Who are you trying to market to? Sometimes we don't support each other. Sometimes you got to go outside of your community, outside of your neighborhood, outside of your phone book to find someone who will support you. So if your business is hurting, think about the place that you're trying to move whatever it is that you're moving and the people that you're trying to sell to. You want to become the OVO. The OVO is the only viable option in your vertical. The only viable option in your vertical. We're not here for competition. We're here for domination. We're here for domination. Period. And if you feel differently, you're probably in the wrong room. Is anybody ready for the fifth one? Are you ready for the fifth one? Might want to capture this. Might want to capture this. For God's sakes, man, your prices. Your prices. We should stand out because of price. Some people look for the lowest price. You're making a big mistake because you're defining yourself. Your success comes from mindset and perception. If you're competing over the lowest price, there's a problem. Be the face of change that you want to see. Stop asking questions and start giving demands. Train people. I'm going to leave you with this. We train people how to treat us when we meet us based on how we treat ourselves. Brand you and not what you do.